Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into data and information. We're going to be picking apart this source document, dataandinformation.pdf, to, really understand this information-driven world we live in.
It's interesting how these terms, data and information, are often used as synonyms, but they actually represent very different concepts, and understanding that difference can be quite powerful, actually.
For sure. So let's break down that fundamental difference then between data and information. Now, this document, it defines data as like the raw material, the unprocessed ingredients, right? So how would you illustrate that with a real-world example?
Okay, well, imagine a fitness tracker, right? It's collecting all this data, all these data points, your heart rate, how many steps you're taking, even your sleep patterns. All that's interesting, but it's just, well, raw data. It only becomes information when it's processed, analyzed. Let's say your tracker uses that data to tell you that you're averaging 7 hours of sleep per night. That means you have a healthy sleep pattern, right? That insight, that's information, and all came from that raw data.
So it's all about adding context, adding meaning to those raw data points. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when we talk about data, especially in this digital age, the question of security naturally comes up.
Oh, absolutely. In dataandinformation.pdf, they define security as essentially setting up safeguards to protect data, software, and hardware from, any unauthorized access, changes, or even disclosure. And this applies whether it's accidental or intentional.
And speaking of intentional, those big data breaches we hear about all the time in the news, those are prime examples of these data security threats, right?
Absolutely. The document actually highlights 5 main threats: human error, technical glitches, natural disasters. Then you have deliberate actions like hacking, and even corporate espionage. Just a few years ago, there was that data breach at that big tech company, remember? An employee accidentally uploaded a confidential file to a public server, exposing all that sensitive customer data. That just goes to show how human error, even a small mistake, can have huge consequences.
It's a good reminder that security isn't just about algorithms and firewalls. It's about the human factor, too.
Exactly. And that's where, as the document emphasizes, administrative controls come in. It's about creating procedures and policies to reduce those risks. One thing that I found interesting was controlling access to physical spaces like computer centers, master file rooms. Restricting physical access, it's just as important as any digital security measure.
It's like building a fortress around your data. You need both, the digital walls and the physical ones.
Exactly. A layered approach. You have your administrative controls. They dictate who can access what. And then your physical security measures like locked rooms, secure storage, they all back that up. They're both critical for a strong data security strategy.
Okay, so we've talked about having strong security for our data, but what about the information itself? What makes some information more valuable, more useful than others?
That's a really good question. This document, it actually lists 7 key qualities of good information. Things like relevance, completeness, timeliness. Those are really important. Is this information actually useful to you? Does it give you the whole picture? Is it up to date? These are all things that really affect how valuable information is.
Thinking about relevance, I've definitely gone down those internet rabbit holes where, I end up with all this random trivia, but I'm no closer to what I was actually trying to learn.
Oh, I think we've all been there. And that's actually another thing the document talks about. Good information shouldn't be excessive. Sometimes we focus too much on getting more information instead of getting better quality information.
That reminds me of this one time I was researching a new tech gadget, right? And, oh my gosh, I was just flooded with reviews and articles and forum posts. And it was too much. Instead of helping me decide, it just made me feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a classic case of information overload.
Yeah.
Sometimes having a short, well-organized analysis is so much better than trying to make sense of a mountain of data.
Totally agree. Less is definitely more sometimes when it comes to information. Now, the document also talks about how organizations categorize information. It mentions 3 types: strategic, tactical, and operational. Can you explain those a bit more?
Sure. So strategic information, that's the big picture stuff. It's what top-level management uses to make long-term decisions, set the direction of the organization. Things like market trends, competitor analysis, long-term financial forecasts. It's all about understanding the big picture, the overall landscape.
So that's the high-level view. Where does tactical information come in?
Tactical information, that's more about the how. It's used by middle management to take the strategic goals and turn them into action plans. It's about managing resources, monitoring performance, making sure everyone's working towards those goals. Think of things like quarterly sales reports, budget variances, project timelines, that sort of thing.
So it's like it bridges the gap between that big vision and the day-to-day work, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then that brings us to operational information, which is really the heart of those daily operations. This is the information that the frontline employees use every day to do their jobs, to make decisions in the moment, to keep everything running smoothly. We're talking customer orders, inventory levels, production schedules, those really practical, essential things.
So you have this whole hierarchy of information, each level with its own purpose in the organization. Strategic at the top, setting the vision, then tactical, translating that vision into action, and operational at the base, making sure everything runs smoothly. It really does, like a well-oiled machine. Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive. The difference between data and information, all the different aspects of data security, and how organizations classify their information. Was there anything else in datainformation.pdf that you found particularly interesting?
One thing that really struck me was how much it emphasized understanding the source of information and the context. Like today, we're constantly bombarded with data, right? From social media, news outlets, online forums. Being able to look at that information critically, think about the source, any biases it might have, the context, that's so important for figuring out if that information is reliable, if it's actually valuable.
Yeah, you're right. Especially now with so much misinformation out there and just so much information in general. It's not enough to just absorb everything, right? We have to look at it critically, question where it's coming from, what the agenda might be.
Absolutely. Developing that kind of critical eye, it's essential if you want to navigate this complex information landscape we have.
It's about being an active participant, not just a passive consumer of information.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of data and information, what's the main thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this? I think the most important message is that if you understand these basic concepts of data and information, it really empowers you. You can navigate the digital world more effectively. You can make better decisions. You can even be more proactive about your own data privacy and security.
It's about taking control of our relationship with information, how we use it, how we protect it, how we, as you said, how we exist in this increasingly digital world that's constantly generating more and more data.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process, learning and adapting as the information landscape changes.
That's so true. Okay, well, on that note, I think it's time for us to process all this information we've just downloaded. A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through all of this.
It was a pleasure being here. Really enjoyed it.
And to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it, helpful, and most importantly, that you can actually use this information in your own lives. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking those questions.